Hey folks, Matthew coming at you. December 5th, 2021. Hope all is doing well. Had a happy Thanksgiving. Some on the left claiming that the Pilgrims were the first white supremacist, etc. Never mind that. Got a quick message, not too long and drawn out, hopefully. God bless each and every one of you. Possibly, when I have time, do a video. When able, have something on my mind. Set some records straight, possibly. Been doing more watching, listening. As a gentleman told me one time in the maritime industry, stop broadcasting, maybe start tuning in. Might have been good advice. It's working here lately. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you, be careful of those whom for which that you see on YouTube, other platforms, etc., talking as if they are prophets. Common indicator. Talking of wisdom and serpents. Think about that. There's only one true source that's starting with the Bible, discernment, and using good judgment. Because those whom for which speak of serpents usually will turn around and bite you. Just my opinion, just a little advice. So let's lead into some of the thoughts, tidbits of info, if you will, of what I wanted to share. Big shout out to all those out there doing it. 400-pound gorilla. To all of you. You know, I've heard a lot of folks, not gonna mention any names, but reached out to a few folks. To no surprise at all, crickets. But I'll tell you this. A lot going on, isn't there? This Ghislaine Maxwell trial that we see going on in our midst. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Interesting indeed. I gotta tell you, let's move on to there's a lot of just that for you. As always, I'm not a journalist, director. Good thing. Because apparently guns kill people, not people. Just listen, don't Alec Baldwin me, bro. Good thing I'm not into acting or directing. Just saying. Back to my point. A lot of things being heard, seen, put out there. Look at this pic. A lot of things happening. CEOs, brothers, anchors going down out of New York. Got a couple of tidbits of info of New York. Speaking of New York, a lot of folks coming out speaking about this trial, the info surrounding it, to the ever so developing jab weapon. So I gotta ask you, I'm going to move around here and show a couple of pertinent pics, I feel. Like this guy. You know, the one out of Texas. You know, the one I could have met. January 5th. Thank goodness I didn't go, because I knew it was a trap. Kind of an inside tidbit. That's right. I was supposed to have been up there with some colleagues. Still catching some flack for not attending, but I knew better. So this guy here comes out the other day, who I've reached out to since Pizzagate. He will not talk to me. Not sure why. He's done a lot for Owen Schroyer, who I have spoke with, leave it at that, on a couple of occasions, who's being targeted as well as others. Done a lot of good things as far as speaking out, but was raising some money for his court case, because he's more than likely, my opinion, we'll all have to wait and see, will probably get hung out to dry. Just, you know, this gentleman here, pictured, he needs no introduction. It is what it is. Says on air, well, Owen was raising a good bit of money, but I had to stop him because I got to raise money for myself in my broadcast. Don't believe me? Check it out. Unbelievable. Now he's calling out Donald Trump. Imagine that. Where you been, AJ? Guy claims this may be a rant versus a video. I don't know. Just kidding, not really. I'm just pointing out a few things, folks. Do you remember when Cody and I spoke about the elimination or prohibited 5G around Mar-a-Lago? Now this gentleman pointed out a good point about, remember the right to try that 45 passed? Do you ever think, we mentioned it, Cody and I and Dr. Ford. In fact, I keep saying it. It's not a big deal. It is what it is. Kind of tease me off when I hear others saying they were the first to start talking about the jab weapon. We talked about it back in February of 2020. Back when it was still being correlated to bat soup in a wet market. Anyway, digressing back. right to try the lead up to Warp Speed. Don't believe me? Go check it out. It's kind of interesting how that happened. Isn't it? So let's go on to a couple other picks here. Look at this doozy of a pick. The Criminal News Network talking about this event. A car drove through a city Christmas parade, kind of like a gun shooting itself. I didn't pull the trigger. The gun did, right? What, are you kidding me? A car. I think it was an SUV, wasn't it? A car drove through a city Christmas parade, killing 6, injuring scores of others. Wow, how it unfolds and is worded when it doesn't fit the narrative, right? Kind of interesting. To this jewel right here. Buries her newborn murdered baby by her. You guessed it, New York. In her backyard. I bet those witches on the steps of the Supreme Court the other day would be proud, huh? Taking those forever abortion pills. Back to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Unscripted, moving right along here. Bouncing all over the place. To this right here, messages uncovered. Remember this? 19. I know I do. Remember me talking about the flight records? I know some folks over at a podcast do. Might want to think about that. The flight logs. Mar-a-Lago from LaGuardia. With this individual to what we're hearing now coming out with the case with this young jewel of a lady, Maxwell, who claims she's innocent, but yet was licensed to run a submarine from island to island with God knows what on board or passenger list. Doesn't seem a little suspect at all, huh? Have to run a submarine to carry folks back and forth from the main island to the pedo island? Nah, not at all, huh? That's not suspect at all. To this doozy of an event, remember? Like on their headline, funny. It's funny, they say. Mr. W. speaking in 2000. No matter what political paradigm you reside, elections have always been not accurate, ladies and gentlemen. Go do some research. Gentleman on the right actually won in 2000. Go back and listen to this speech when George W. was speaking. Listen closely to the references to the elites, and one in particularly that he references about Texas, about Texas versus New York. You'll catch it if you listen real close. Talking about people jumping out of windows. That's right. To also deliberating to the crowd this night in 2000, the Al Smith dinner, talking about his brother Jeb unable to attend because he was busy in Florida. Kind of ironic, huh? Well, anyone that's not asleep knows where the race was won for W in 2000. Anyone think about hanging chads? I know I have. History literally does repeat itself. Don't you think? So this gentleman, back to him. You know, they got so many out there beating that drum, calling others out, saying they're the first to deliberate any info, etc. Asking people to do more. Now, this gentleman spoke out against 45. Basically, claiming that he's responsible for a lot of stuff, but references why he hasn't come out and spoke out against the jab. Well, that's kind of another pic I was trying to find. Bear with me. Remember that photo? And interesting, isn't it? You guys out there, ladies and gentlemen, be the judge. I can't be that for you, but there is a lot of unanswered questions to be answered. But I give a shout out to AJ. Don't agree with everything that he says, but I guess my long drawn out slurring speech and point to this is that all the folks that whom for which I used to talk with know who you are. I reached out to one the other night regarding flight info. Why is it that 45 has not came out and spoke out against the mandates, warp speed, and the jab in general? Why is that? Well, I bet I got an idea. George Carlin said it best. It's a big club, but you ain't in it. Never forget that, folks. None of us are in it. Reason I bring up the speech that was delivered by W in 2000 makes condescending, joking reference to that. Go back and listen. I left the link in the description. He jokes about the folks in attendance, the elite, or in other words, best described as his base. Just as you're seeing the dominoes fall, with the folks that are being affected remember this guy? Remember? Just saying. Pay attention to this. The mainstream media is not going to pay attention to it, but I want all of you to pay attention. Watch how many people are affected by this Ghislaine Maxwell trial. I guess the point of this little conversation or video, if you will, ask yourself the real questions. Look at all the stuff leading up to the 2022 midterms. Look at inflation. Look at the mandates, the supply chain issues. Look at these trial decisions, meaning the 5th and 6th District Court. But yet there's no change. Look at the momentum and the influence currently, not only in this country but the world. Australia come to mind, but look at the influence that the United Nations has right now. It's what happens when you don't prepare for a video. Your dehumidifier comes on in the middle of it. Apologize in advance. But look at the UN right now. Remember when the internet, the control of it was given to the United Nations? Look at the rumors of war and the momentous shift leading up to conflict. Pay attention to Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. You know, same stuff that I talked about geopolitically. Not a I told you so moment or any of that, but it's relevant. Look at the demise of the currency Those who are, I've told you, be leery of digital currency. Just another tool for those whom for which are in the club to control the non-member, or those whom for which, that is, aren't in it. The club, that is. That would be you and I and others. So pay attention in the coming days. Get a plan. Get prepared. Be ready to protect you and yours. That's under assault as well. Now, I didn't list the link, but go take a look at Glenn Beck's. Not that I agree with everything that gentleman says, especially on 9/11. But he did a pretty good report of what's going on here as of late. Go check him out on the Blaze. I will give him that. Now that's one thing that 45 got right. The media truly is, mainstream that is, enemy of the people. Well, let me clarify that for it always has been. It's always been a tool, just like other things, currency, infrastructure, the markets, energy, petrodollar, coal, now solar. We're being told we will use or else. Prices being fluctuated on food, the squeeze being applied to manufacturers in this country and farmers. It's all tied together, folks. So pay attention. Not saying that you aren't. But a recap real quick. The Ghislaine Maxwell trial. This jab stuff happening. Pay attention to what's going on up in D.C., District of Columbia. For which they want to make a state, independent state. Look at the money being spent, folks, that we don't have. Give you an example of that. My business that I started, I was looking at buying a piece of equipment that would have probably cost me everything we had in reserve. But being a non-club member and also having a blessing of a better half who would have probably not been too happy with me, I had to make other decisions on equipment. Something that didn't put us financially at risk. The government doesn't do that, folks. Because they feel, another point I will drive before ending this video, which is now almost 30 minutes. I apologize for that. The government doesn't do that because they're never at risk. The other point I want to make in closing is pay attention to Mr. George Soros. Newt Gingrich has never been back on the Fox News network ever since he made mention of that gentleman and his influence of all the funded DAs around the country, which they tried to encapsulate and use to their advantage in Kenosha. Thank goodness that didn't work out for them. But that's another thing that Mr. Beck mentions. Go check that latest. I think it's 45 minutes in length. Latest special report that Mr. Beck did a couple days ago. And I think you would agree more than not of the information that he discusses. But I've rambled enough. Big shout out to Doug, Dakota, Alex over there at Disabled Veterans Perspective. Glad to know that Lisa's staying strong. My brother, God's guy, and Gina girl over there in Washington. Not D.C., but state of Washington. And all the others. Keep your heads on a swivel. Use both eyes and ears instead of that one vocal mouthpiece, folks. Here in the coming days is another piece of advice that I'll render. God bless each and every one of you. And as always, leading out. Pray for the United States of America. Long live 1776. Support our vets. Patriots stand tall together for the anthem. Keep fighting. And lastly, as always, hold the line. This is Matthew. Don't know when it'll be, but till next time. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to all of you.